Good afternoon. Welcome, everybody. Before we begin, we will acknowledge that we are in the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe peoples in the Williams and Huron-Robinson Treaties area. We recognize the long history of First Nations and Métis peoples on this land and show respect to them today. We acknowledge our neighbors, the Wattamohawks and the First Nations of Moose Deer, Shawniga, Wasauksing, Magnetawan, Henry Inlet, Nipissing, and the Dokis. As we are learning from our First Nation partners, I want to stress the importance of accepting our responsibility to take care of Mother Earth, her plants, her animals, and our shared peoples. We look to each other and the elders of both nations as a source of inspiration, guidance, and the living memory of our communities. We, like all peoples, must accept that we are stewards of creation and that the land comes to us with a responsibility where no hierarchy exists. All life is sacred on earth, in the waters, and in the skies. And as settlers, we are grateful for the opportunity to meet here, and we thank all of the generations of peoples who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. So I would now like to call the meeting to order and ask for approval of the agenda. You did receive an addendum this afternoon with some correspondence and a new resolution. I have, thank you. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? No, I see none. We move on. So I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adopt the minutes of the regular and closed session meetings of Council held on September 5th, 2023 as circulated. Could I have a motion? Thank you. And all in favor? Thank you. I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adjourn the regular meeting to hold a public meeting for the following matters: zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2023-0015-H for Davidson, and zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2023-0020-F for Corbett. Could I have a motion? Okay. From there and Collins, all in favor of moving into open? Thank you. Council will now hold a public meeting for proposed zoning bylaw amendment applications. In accordance with the Planning Act, Council will consider all matters placed before it prior to passing a zoning bylaw. Anyone wishing to receive notice of the passing of a zoning bylaw amendment and who has not submitted such a request in writing should provide your name and address to the clerk. No one other than the prescribed persons may appeal an application under the provisions of the Planning Act. If they do not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin prior to the decision of Council, then the Ontario Land Tribunal may dismiss the appeal. The purpose of zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2023-0015-H for Davidson is to rezone the subject lands to a rural exception zone to permit a storage container on the lands prior to a principal use, as well as to permit a 2-meter side yard setback for the storage container. I now ask the clerk to state the method by which the notice of the meeting was provided and the dates on which that notice was provided.
Notice of the public meeting was provided by posting the property on August 15th and by regular mail on August 26, 2023. Notice was therefore considered provided in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act.
Has the township received any correspondence with respect to this application?
No correspondence has been received.
Is there anyone present in person in the council chambers who wishes to speak in favor of or in opposition to this application? No. Has anyone registered to speak via electronic participation?
No one is registered to speak.
And I see Brady online. Do you want to tell us a little bit about this application?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So this property at 64 Macaulay Road, it's subject to a forest tax incentive program. So the applicants are required to follow a managed forest plan. So that requires the need for a storage container on the property to store related equipment. And then they're also requiring a 2-meter side yard setback. So that is why the rezoning is requested. And I'm here to answer any questions if there are any.
Does council have any questions? Nope. I think you must have covered everything, Brady. So thank you very much. So I move on. The purpose of zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2023-0015-H for Davidson is to rezone the subject lands to a rural exception zone to permit a storage container. Am I on the same one? Nope. Okay. Prior to principal use, as well as to permit a 2-meter side yard setback for the storage container. I now ask the clerk to state the method by which notice was provided and the dates on which that was provided.
Notice of the public meeting was provided by posting the property and by regular mail on August 29th, 2023. Notice was therefore considered to provide in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act.
Has the township received any correspondence with respect to this application?
Correspondence has been received from Harold and Debbie Blower, Wayne and Marilyn Hall, and Mike and Brenda Timmons.
And that was in your addendum package. Yeah. Is there anyone present in person in the council chambers who wishes to speak in favor of or in opposition to this application? No. Has anyone registered to speak via electronic participation?
No one is registered to speak.
And I think we might have Lauren online. Oh, nope, we have Taylor. Do you have any explanation for us on this one, Taylor?
No, I've nothing to add. Do you have any questions? Please let me know.
Does council have any questions for Taylor? Nope. Okay, move on. I have a motion that the public meeting held for the following matters is hereby closed and the regular meeting is hereby reconvened. Zoning bylaw amendment application R 2023-0015-H for Davidson and zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2023-0020-F for Corbett. Could I have a motion? Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. So this follows, right? Yes. So this is the motion for Davidson. Motion that bylaw number 2023-090 being a bylaw to amend Township of zoning bylaw number 2006-125, property roll number 4903-10-004-03600, application number R 2023-0015-H for Davidson is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion? Vincent and Terry Fellner, all in favor? Thank you. This is the one for Corbett, that bylaw number 2023-097 being a bylaw to amend Township of Seguin zoning bylaw number 2006-125, property roll number 4903-030-007-03814, application number R 2023-0020-F for Corbett is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion for that? There you go. Greg, all in favor? Thank you. And we have our delegations. And I think I'm welcoming an old friend, Daryl Moffat, and Kevin Trimble from the Muskoka Watershed Council. And I think you know the drill. You have 10 minutes and you don't forget to push the little microphone thing, green button.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, the rest of council, my name is Daryl Moffat, as you're well aware, and I'm here with my fellow board member, Mr. Kevin Trimble. We're here on behalf of the Muskoka Watershed Council. And when I was here in July, I noted that I'd be back in front of council with a proposal, which is included in your council package. Muskoka Watershed Council had a very busy summer. Love Your Lake, the Natural Edge. But today we launched our report card, which Mr. Kimball was there and was well attended. So we look forward to speaking about that. We're here though today to discuss the proposal in your package with a request for funding from the Township of Seguin in the amount of $10,000 for a program that we are launching and partnering with the area municipalities with respect to the integrated watershed management. This is a big step for the watershed. We are a volunteer organization and we need municipal support. We need municipal partnership in order to move the health of the watershed forward. This is really a step that started probably 3, 4, 5 years ago with regards to integrated watershed management. So it is not something that will be, a short-lived. This is a long-term plan that we have in front of us. We are trying to bring all the councils and staff together. We're proposal to do a conference. It would be in winter of 2024 in order to lay a foundation, education and such with respect to the watershed, because for the most part, unless you're technical, Mr. Trimble, the watershed health and all the intricacies with it are a little bit more of a challenge. We have included in your presentation an estimate of the costs associated with our work plan. And similar to other organizations, if we are unable to get all the amount of funding, we would have to pare back our work plan, but we're hopeful that we will have at least a substantial amount in order to do our work. We have looked and we continue to look for private funding. We have asked, and if not yet, but we are going through various municipalities with a similar funding request that are all within the watershed. The integrated watershed management is not a duplication of Seguin's current environmental programs, the water quality, the lake stewardship, energy management, ice cap, invasive species, and blue-green algae, but is really an extension of Seguin's environmental first principle by investing in partnering with the watershed. We also are looking for non-government organizations, Georgian Bay Biosphere, in order to partner with us with respect to this. As you know, as a chartered accountant that I am, numbers and tangible results are important, but there are times that long-term investment needs to be made and you don't always see the short-term benefit. Seguin Township a few years ago went on board with the benthic testing, and that is a 3-year, collection of data in order to see the trends. So there is principle for Seguin investing in long-term with limited or shorter short-term benefits. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Trimble. You can catch up on the slides. There we go.
Thanks very much for the opportunity. I'm just going to take a couple of minutes to explain the rationale behind the funding request. And I think I'll dive right into the meat of it just to economize on the time, and then we can have questions afterwards if you like. The Watershed Council released our 2023 watershed report card this morning at a media event at the Discovery Center down in Gravenhurst. And what's different about the report card this time around is that in a nutshell, it's showing that status quo environmental management across the watershed is not going to be adequate for the combination of overlapping and disturbing trends that we're seeing in the watershed. And we think we're going to need a more integrated approach going forward. We need, just 1 second. We need a coordinated approach that includes all 13 of the local area municipalities in the watershed that integrates multidisciplinary goals for planning, infrastructure, climate action, flood management, and other challenges that we're facing. But we also have a great opportunity to save costs if we can replace localized, single-purpose decisions and projects with more multidisciplinary projects and decisioning tools that consider the whole watershed going forward. And what we're suggesting is an integrated approach, and it can't be implemented by a single municipality on its own. But we've shown through a lot of research that it's been very successful with collaborative and co-governance models in many parts of the world, in fact. But it needs to be implemented with all of the watersheds municipalities in the decision making. We know that many of our member lake associations have endorsed this approach, and we're discussing roles that don't overlap and aren't competitive. They're complementary with our other major NGO partners, like the Georgian Bay Biosphere Reserve, Friends of the Muskoka Watershed, et cetera. We've already undertaken a number of activities, and we started back in about 2018. And this is it's a long road because this involves a bit of a culture shift in the watershed. But we've undertaken a case study review of successful governance models where municipalities join together and partner on integrated watershed management. This was one of 16 that the province funded the year before last. And we're now hoping that we can capitalize on the outcomes of these 16 projects. So we have a lot of work to do to bring in the public and politicians and staff at the municipal level up to speed on this whole process. But we would like your participation, starting with a conference we're setting up, a one-day conference specifically designed for elected officials and senior staff across the municipalities. And we're looking for a one-time injection to help us move forward. And as Daryl said, we've been doing this initiative for 5 years now, entirely on volunteer effort. And we think this is going to help municipalities do a better job with environmental management, given what we're now learning about the challenges that we have going forward. There's more detail in the package I think you should all have. But what we'd like to do leading into 2024 with a one-time injection from the municipalities is to prepare a structured program of materials and guidance for all municipal representatives, develop and deliver on a proper communication strategy to educate the public and generate political will for this process, culminating in a summit on IWM later in the year. And this is similar to our past summits on the environment, which have been very successful leading up to just before COVID came in. We want to continue the evolution of our community roundtable to include more partnering municipalities. We have quite a number. We have several Indigenous communities and a number of business sector reps on it so far, as well as our other NGOs. And we'd like to build on some recommendations that we're developing right now at a high level to create a detailed plan with scoped steps for a much more tangible path forward towards a watershed management strategy for the watershed. So that would have scoped items on each step of the process to get to a watershed management plan. We know that these activities don't have a really definitive, tangible outcome or product, but we think we can get past some specific kinds of milestones if we can get beyond this roadblock that we are now in, where we're relying totally on volunteer effort. And in terms of what the municipality will get for this contribution in the next year, success will look like a developed communication strategy that we're acting on, a structured and properly delivered plan for municipal rep involvement and a detailed plan to move forward with a watershed management strategy with all of the steps outlined. We don't have that yet, and we have high-level recommendations we're hoping to get into that with next year. And we also hope that we will have all partners educated enough so that municipalities are all completely at the table as equal partners endorsing a plan to move this process forward. In terms of the bigger picture, it's a long road we're going down. We've been at it for 5 years already. It's probably going to be another 10 years. But we think this is probably the only way we can get enough or a robust enough environmental management plan for the whole watershed. And we also think that there will be big cost savings and economies of scale for the municipalities, so that we can achieve without compromising the autonomy of each municipality, nor with adding any added bureaucracy or like layers of bureaucracy to planning processes, et cetera. And we need to emphasize that this isn't a pet project, a research project for an NGO looking for charity by any stretch. We're a bunch of volunteers that have put in hundreds and hundreds of hours looking for ways to help municipalities get better, given what we're learning about what's going on in the watershed right now. And we think there will be a lot to gain from an investment starting now, but we need your help to get to square one in the process. And I think that's all I need to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Does council have any questions? Councillor Fellner?
Yeah. For the presentation. Thanks, Jason. How many other of you say there's 13 municipalities all told that involved in the watershed geographically. So how many of those municipalities have you given this presentation to, and can you give us the benefit? Like, your approach only makes sense if you get complete buy-in, correct?
Yeah, so for this current request, we're going to our primary member municipalities, of which there are 8, including the 6 district local municipalities, Seguin and Algonquin Highlands. At the same time, without asking for a specific monetary request right now, we're going to the outer 5 local area municipalities and their upper tier municipalities to bring them more into the process, because they haven't historically been, and they're not active members of the Watershed Council as yet. So we're delegating to them right now, but we're not making a financial request until probably next year from them. And then we also have the district, which gives us a small stipend for our regular annual operating. But this request is focused on the 8 member local municipalities.
And to answer the second question, the ask is anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000 that we're at the municipalities.
And that's based on what the geographical area that
On the 8, yeah.
right? Okay, so what do you do if you don't get 13, you get 8? Like, where does that leave you guys? You're hooped, or you?
No, we're asking for, it's about, I think the total of what we're asking for is 80 or 90,000, if I remember right. The total of what we believe we need for the items I mentioned, the activities I mentioned, is probably in around $130,000. And we're hoping to get that through additional funding sources like it all. We have some prioritization in the activities, so we think we can hit the main ones. We might have to drop off 1 or 2 at the bottom and still get to good tangible results. An example might be the Summit on Integrated Watershed Management, which is for the broader public late next year. That would probably be one of the first things that we would have to chop if we don't get all of the money. But we think the most important ones, no matter what happens, we will get those accomplished.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Bazinski and then Counselor Collins.
Thank you. Just wondering roughly, how would Seguin compare with the town of Gravenhurst or Bracebridge or Huntsville in terms of your request financially?
Breakdown.
I did ask,
I know
Mr. Mock.
that the Township of Muskoka Lakes got a $15,000 request. And a couple of the municipalities are in the $20,000 range. I'm not sure exactly which
I
two
don't
of
know. I
those
don't have
there
the
are. We don't
breakdown.
have the breakdown with us, but and then there's a couple that are in the 5 to 10 range.
thank you.
Counselor Collins.
Thank you, Mayor. I didn't know if you guys were aware of this, that we are going to be voting tonight on our own climate action plan that's being run by Forest. And it kind of like marries into both of them, what you're asking and what we're doing. So I would think that maybe moving the yardsticks forward, that maybe you should be talking to Forest, especially if this is passed tonight, and then working through his budget rather than, because it's no use us spending money with you guys and Forest at the same time. It doesn't make any sense because you're both doing the same thing. So that would be my recommendation moving forward. And of course, we haven't even gone to our budget session as yet, and that's just right around the corner. And you know, Daryl, through years of being a counselor, that there is a maximum amount of money that we give out. So, and we haven't even reached that goal yet, have we? We haven't even given out any money yet on our plan, but that's what I would consider, or you should maybe consider that in the near future. That would be my recommendation for.
Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Collins, the proposal and the discussion is already had with Forest. I had that back early in August. And his recommendation at the time was to bring it forward to council today. And that's why we're here today. So we also will, if required, we will go through the donation process, which is not due until the 1st of December. So, but the issue that I had was the dollar amount, knowing that most times that donation is 500, 1,000, 1,500. This is a little bit more than that, but if we're unable to secure any other financing, we would try through that route to receive as much as possible.
I'm thinking last year, I think the donation was $1,000.
Yes.
Was it
Yes,
$1,000 last year? And
yes,
then
the
you're asking
limit is 3,000 per ask.
Yeah.
Per organization, I guess
Yeah.
is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm fine.
Counselor
Thank you.
Bazinski, one more.
Just a question. You mentioned a one-time ask. Perhaps you could go into that in terms of why is it only one time? Are you setting up a bureaucracy where you're going to have staff or like, I'm not quite sure I understand what the funding is for. So that would be the one question.
Okay, yeah, and the one of the big reasons this is a one-time ask is specifically so we are not getting into investing in a long-term thing with commitments to staff and hiring and that kind of thing. We're in a chicken and egg scenario right now. We know we need to do a fair bit of work to generate political will, and also to bring the education level of counselors across the watershed all onto the same playing field in order to have everyone sit down and figure out what a co-governance model might be structured like. The MWC we have in the past, and we probably will come up with very specific scoped exercises where we may have to hire an outside expert. And we did that for the governance study last year. It worked out very, very well. But we're not getting into this scenario where we want to get staff hired on with this particular injection. We need to wait till we have the municipalities at the table to figure out what's the right way to move this whole thing forward, what kind of partnership arrangement needs to happen, and then have the steps scoped out properly at that point.
Councillor Getty.
Just wanted to say, I think the timing is good for this being brought to us. I think the program that Forrest is, I think the integration of what we're looking at to do here in Seguin. We all know that we can do site specific to Seguin, but if, we're being affected by residually by, surrounding communities, all the work that we do can be moot. So I think the timing is well, and I think it's something that there's a benefit for it coming forward at the same time and to be considered in the budget process as we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple questions that I have, and it piggybacks a little bit on Councillor Bazinski's question. When you say one-time funding of $10,000, are you expecting to spend all of it in 2024, or is it going to be spent over a couple of years, for instance?
No, it would all be spent in the coming year on the list of activities we have. When we've actually, we have bigger ambitions in the list of activities than we're asking for money from you municipalities for. So it will definitely all be spent on this list of activities in the hope of achieving the objectives we laid out.
Okay, but one time you're never going to be back on our desk again?
Don't answer that. We had this discussion at the board meeting. I have a problem with one time, but as you're well aware, the board made a decision. So I wouldn't say never, because as part of the watershed, as part of the, Councillor Bazinski and Forrest being on, on the watershed, Seguin is a member. So historically, we recognize, and, I spoke to Michelle years ago about this. Historically, there was funding coming from Seguin. The $1,000 that was given last year went to the report card. So there's been a big gap, but I think, as everyone's well aware, you can't have gaps in environmental right now. So, we need to try to move this forward.
Okay, one more question from Councillor Collins and Councillor Bazinski, and then I'd like to turn it.
Yeah, our donation last year equaled $1,000. How much money did you actually bring in from other municipalities?
We received our regular contribution from the District of Muskoka, which was around $6,000.
So okay, so is that it?
And as Mr. Trimble has mentioned, that covered our operating costs,
Mhm.
And our activities.
Mhm.
We have a lot of in-kind from the district, being a staff member and other staff that assist us in our programs. The $1,000 that was received went to the preparation of the report card, which we will be doing in a hard copy version. So that went to that amount.
Yeah, because on your presentation, it looked like your business plan was a total of minimum, I would say, a total of 130K.
Yeah.
That's your business plan.
Yes.
That's the amount of money you actually need in order to fulfill what you guys plan to do in 2024. Is that correct?
Correct. And any funding gap, we either going to pare back our work, or we're going to support it with other outside funding.
No. All right. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Bazinski.
Just a few comments, like in terms of your private sector funding sources and so on. An environmental conference in Muskoka is a great idea. I've attended some in years past. They weren't specifically for counselors, but for NGOs and others, and they seem to get fairly well funded by the private sector. So that's something like in a case like, this conference for counselors, you might broaden it a little more and get a fair bit of private sector funding, I would suggest.
Thank you. Just one more question. how much grant funding has been applied for or has been received from various levels of government or environmental organizations themselves?
So the only grant funding that's been applied for has basically been summer students in the past. So at this time, we don't have any grant applications in with respect to this, but it is something that's on the table for us.
Okay, and just to clarify, when you talked about last year, you talked about us giving 1,000 and District of Muskoka 6,000. Had the other municipalities, like a McDougall and Archipelago, have they been asked and just chosen not to, or have they not been asked?
Archipelago has not been asked for funding. I went to do a deputation back in August. McDougall has not, there's not been a deputation. I was at Monteith McMurch a few weeks ago. So again, as Mr. Trimble mentioned, we're looking at the core 8 and then trying to expand. Looks like we've been able to secure an additional member from Monteith McMurch, as well as the Archipelago, which is something the council did not have in the past.
Based on the comments and based on where we are with our environmental and climate action plan, I think all of us think it's a good idea. I think I'm going to send it back to staff to integrate. You can speak to it a little bit to integrate with what else we're doing. And if it's going to be considered in the 2024 budget, it'll likely come back to the table the December deadline when we see what other, what other requests we have and where it can fit within the overall budget. But I like our Chief Administrative Officer to speak to it.
Thank you, Your Worship. Members of Council, I think you're on the right path, Your Worship. I think this is something far greater than that of a donation request that we normally would see through our regular processes with the December 1st deadline that would get included in the budget. So if council's comfortable with that approach, I would suggest you refer the request to staff. Forrest and I will have a discussion about it, and we'll look at how we perhaps integrate this into the 2024 operating and capital budgets. If it's a one-time expense, it sounds to me like there's an opportunity for a one-time capital project to be considered by council, subject to the affordability of our entire program, of course. But that would be my recommendation to council, is refer that back to us, and we'll see what we can do to include it in the budget.
Council comfortable with that next step? But you're here at the right time to get it included in the 2024 discussions. So thank you very much. And thank you for the work you do. I do think it's important. And without the watershed, we have very little here.
Thank you very much as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, okay, but I don't have to read this. Okay. I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby receive the staff reports as presented on the agenda for the September 18th, 2023 meeting of council. And you have that list in your agenda package. Could I have a motion? Councillor Adams and Councillor Basinski. All in favor? Thank you. Okay. We have back on the table the climate change recommendation, climate change update, and our action plans, which we deferred from last time. It's very comprehensive and well explained. I'm assuming we could call Forrest up on the screen here. Could we? Yes. Hi, Forrest. Would you like to talk us through a little bit of it? Your report is outstanding and the cover notes are astounding as well, but and I know there's been a lot of work from a lot of people in this. So take us through it briefly and then we'll open it up to questions.
Through your worship, I'd be happy to. If it would please council, I pulled together a couple slides that might provide some insight, some history and the like to work through this.
Go ahead.
All right, bear with me while I get my screens. All right. So I assume you can see my PowerPoint there?
Yep, we can
Okay.
see it.
Excellent. Now, are you seeing my presenter mode or my actual screen, my presentation screen, just to be clear?
I'm pretty sure we're seeing your presenter screen with just climate action planning and a big gray circle.
Okay, it was supposed to be not that one.
Okay. Now we're seeing you.
Forrest, your first one was the right one.
It was the right one?
Yep.
Okay. All right. We should be good to go now.
You're good.
All right. So first off, I want to thank council, staff, and the greater community and the GBB for helping to facilitate this climate action plan, including both the corporate and the community. To provide a bit of background on the history, particularly since we have a couple new councillors, how did we get here? Well, back in 2019, council passed a resolution to join the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Partners for Climate Protection program. Almost simultaneously, they passed a memorandum of understanding to join the IceCap Collaborative, which is a work group built up of area municipalities and First Nations that have come together for the to migrate forward on climate action, but also to navigate the FCMPCP and the integration of several of the area First Nations integrated community energy plans for the ultimate goal of tying it all together into a regional plan. So following the IceCap MOU throughout 2019, 2020, we all completed baselining to understand our energy consumption and corresponding emissions. All of this was done through collaboration within the West Prairie Sound region of all of the IceCap membership. And it was a tremendous amount of work. Now, beyond the baselining, when we started to come together, we realized that staff from all area municipalities house certain information that is integral to understanding an organization, their corresponding emissions, as well as the community-based emissions. And beyond that, quite often we have a lot of overlap, and we work together in a significant fashion to determine, what emissions are like on that greater regional level and whether or not there's commonalities between all of the members. And so we had work groups for staff, we had work groups for the region, and then we even engaged with several of the area, as we were calling them, knowledge keepers or thought leaders or the like, where these are people who have a professional discipline or some sort of a higher level of knowledge regarding energy consumption or building or transportation or the like that could play into what it meant to understand how we can reduce emissions, how we can work better together, and the various steps that are required therein. And so at that point, we started to move into the phase 1 and phase 2 or milestone 1 and 2, milestones 2 and 3 of the PCP, where you're starting to develop these action plans. And even more important is the associated goals. What are our targets? How do we actually achieve X level of reduction? And so working with the Georgian Bay Biosphere, we followed a bottom-up approach, which meant that we looked at the individuals, the individual emissions, and worked to build up so that what we were targeting was based on reality, and the corresponding actions to reduce emissions were based on actual attainable or feasible recommendations. And so this bottom-up approach is probably the most accurate way to forecast out what it is we think is attainable by 2016 and 2030, and the eventual net zero by 2050. Now, the commitments set forth within the PCP in large part align with the Paris Climate Accord, which is 30% reduction by 2030. And for us, as a greater region, we didn't have the data to back up the 2005 baseline. So we went back to 2016. I think we've done quite well with that. Now, the commitments here listed within both caps should be looked at with the lens that this is a living document. It's a living document and it is a long-term document. And so when we're looking at all the actions, be it corporate or community, they have to have that lens, because not all of these things can be accomplished overnight. This is a longer term strategy. And in large part, when we're looking at how to accomplish these objectives, they have to go in tandem with other guiding directives. And on my slide, you'll see that I've put down that we complement existing strategies, be it the asset management plan or the forthcoming waste strategy. All of these things are related, and one cannot really live without the other. And just to reemphasize, because it's a living document, what we may find throughout time is some of the action items maybe either aren't attainable after we study a little further, or they may not be a good fit, and there may be a better option out there. Or we may end up finding that there's new technologies available that didn't exist at the time the plans were written that could work in favor for our township. And so the question was, why are we doing this? And when I look at Seguin, one of the things that was most attractive was that first pillar of environment first, climate first, always looking at things with that lens. And as council committed to in 2019, the PCP helps to recognize and push that objective further. The other thing is the public expects this. And in fact, through the surveys for the strategic planning, it was one of the single highest ranked concerns that people had. And in fact, you'll see on the graph there, the really high one there, when asked to rank the 3 most priority urgent issues, climate change was number 1 and was 43% higher than the next highest, which was public health and safety. And so these sorts of sentiments extend far beyond the council table, the staff table, and they are pervasive within our community. Above and beyond that, there are significant tangential values, including operational efficiencies, which translate to potential budgetary savings, as well as the greenhouse gas emissions. And to reiterate, in regards to timing and how, this is a 10-year plan. And so we are still in the early days. We have a roadmap here before you. And all of the actions listed within there will follow standard budget cycle planning. That could include operational, capital, or service level change proposals. But to emphasize, the work will follow existing asset management life cycle planning and procurement. In large part, this shows where we are at in the PCP process. We did the inventory, we set targets, and we developed a plan. And now we're into milestone 4 with the adoption of these climate action plans to begin implementing the plan and reporting and monitoring the impact. And so who's doing the work? Well, we all are. Everyone plays a role, from staff to council to the community. And it's integral that we look at it this way. It's integral that we create a culture around climate action planning. And it's integral to be successful within these actions that we create a lens to look at how we are doing business as a municipality. Are we acting responsibly? Are we assessing criteria for procurement based on a climate change lens? That's what will be required to be successful. Now, council has taken one step very recently, and we've hired a climate change intern. Preston, if you don't mind turning on your camera. Council, I'd like to introduce you to Preston Nielsen. He's our climate change intern for the next 12 months. We will be focusing heavily on engagement with staff and public. There will be a lot of project management, funding applications, and a significant amount of analytics.
I'm just going to stop you for 1 second. As long as your screen's sharing, Preston is invisible.
Okay. I am going to, let me see if I can pause that. I will stop sharing.
Welcome, Preston. Now we can see you. So welcome to Seguin.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Okay, and to just wrap up the last slides. So what does this mean at a regional scale? This means that we're walking the walk as we're talking the talk. And so ultimately, all of this climate action planning, be it the corporate and the community, it has all rolled up into a comprehensive regional climate action plan, which I know some of you were at this summer for the launch at the Charles W. Stockey Center. And lastly, I do want to give a sincere thanks to staff, the subject matter experts, and a very, very special thank you to the Georgian Bay Biosphere, more specifically, Ben John, who has really led this portfolio with a tremendous amount of drive and expertise. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Forrest. So I'm going to try and take our questions in order. First comes Councillor Collins.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Forrest. There's just a couple of questions. The internship position that you hired Preston Nielsen for is good for 12 months, correct?
That's correct.
Now, we're training, well, he's being trained to do what you want him to do in his portfolio. Now, at the end of the 12 months, will he go into another contract, or will he be, or would he be looking at being hired full time in the same position that he's in right now?
Through your worship,
But since it is a living document, so we're talking, like you said, 10 years from now, so.
Yeah, and that is a good question. Ultimately, the decision for creating a full-time position will be council's and council's alone. So following the internship, council may be approached for a service level change proposal, at which time council could decide whether or not to proceed on that basis. It would be possible to extend on contract basis immediately following, but that, again, that would be subject to budget and subject to satisfaction of the and progress of the portfolio.
All right. Thanks, Forrest.
You're welcome.
Are there other questions? Councillor Getty.
Forrest, thank you. I think it's a great document, and I appreciate the flexibility in it. Especially, we over the last year and with the rate of inflation, it's recognizing that we have to fit it into our budgetary process and flexibility with it. And Forrest, I don't know if you're the right person to ask, but one of the things we will be considering through the budget process is an infrastructure deficit surplus amount was talked about. And then we're also looking at a climate infrastructure funding plan, so that as things come up, it gives us the flexibility, or you the flexibility, to adapt to those. And I just, maybe it's more to Jason, is it something that through the budgetary process we can consider if in fact we do move forward with either of those initiatives? Thank you.
I'll take a quick stab at this. During the target setting session for this coming 2024 operating capital budget, and as recommended by the Finance Committee, there was a suggestion towards a capital infrastructure levy of sorts. With respect to sort of a climate levy, we have a lot of work to do before we get there. So just to set the stage, council should not expect to see that in 2024. There's a significant undertaking ahead of us with that. So yeah, I mean, we can consider some of those costs at that time, but in the short term, I just want to make sure we're on the same page. You will not see that anything to do with climate infrastructure funding anytime soon.
And Jason, I didn't expect that. And it was just that because this is a long-term plan, and I think it's a great long-term vision goal to be moving towards. As some of these things come up, I can see that some of those infrastructure issues will overlap, and that whether it's something that we should be considering as we move forward through the process, maybe not this year or next year, but as we move forward. That was all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bazinski.
Thank you. I have talked with Forrest about this, and the report is a very good report. Having worked for over 40 years in the energy business, I just wanted to point out a few things. And number one is we need to take baby steps on this. You know, in my ward, people on Salmon Lake and the south part of Otter Lake had 12 outages last year, electrical outages, and they were for quite a bit of time. Now, the reason for the outages were there were trees growing up into the lines, and Hydro in their wisdom wasn't going to go and cut those trees because it was a different department and they weren't going to cut it till the next year. Anyway, long and short of it is electricity is necessary. It's a requirement. There still in our neighborhood are some reliability issues. So in terms of going exclusively to electricity, I can't see recommending that. Space heating still is pretty positive using natural gas. And the electrical system too, if you look at it, there are a number of natural gas-fired electricity generators. OPG has one that's a combination of fuel oil and natural gas. And when you buy and sell power across the border, we're getting coal-fired generation in electricity. So, you know, it's a bandwagon. We want to be on the bandwagon, but we want to take baby steps, because in our neighborhood, we still need at least a dual fuel type of system. There are a lot of people heating with propane, some heating with natural gas, and some on electricity. You hear about outages all the time. So I commend you on your work. You're going the right direction. It's just baby steps. And the other thing is, you know, I wouldn't trade my vehicle in until it was ready to be traded in. And at that time, I would look for the best alternative, be it electric or whatever. But I'm sure that the township will be doing the same. We're not going to be wholesale trading in our fleet in order to turn it into electric in the very near future. It's got to be planned out, and I'm sure the CAO would say the same thing, and I'm sure you're saying the same thing. So all I would say is great work. Let's do it in baby steps though, so that it doesn't cost us time and money unnecessarily. Thank you.
Go ahead, Forrest.
Yeah, through your worship, I do want to emphasize what the councillor is saying. There is a tremendous amount of value to curtailment, which is kind of that in-between space between traditional fossil fuel and electric. And it's, in some cases, curtailment can be the solution. It's actually what I've done in my own home recently. Switching to an electric source heat pump with propane assist. for those really cold days. That said, the industries will get there. They will get there, but dependency has to catch up at the same pace. And we are going to be looking at all of these objectives in a very pragmatic sense. When it comes to asset replacements, unless there is a very firm business case for replacing equipment prematurely, it would follow the standard replacement cycle.
Thank you. Councillor Adams.
No, I was just gonna say, there's 3 buildings right here that could have solar panels put on them too, that all face south. They could put the panels facing south. Public Works building, the arena, and this building. Especially the arena, there's lots of room for solar panels. Same with Public Works, it's facing south too. So that's all.
Yeah, and I think we've got a lot of buildings at the airport as well that could take solar panels on a lot of the hangars. So I know that these things are all in the works and they're all worth looking at. The one thing I would stress, I think it's an outstanding document, and we are the only township so far in this region that says environment first. And with that, I would like us to take a leadership stance attitudinally, if not in all the things we change to, but I think we can lead our neighbors in how we address this, how we have both Forest and Preston working dedicated to this, that there's an opportunity here to continue to be environmental leaders in everything we buy, whenever we make a decision. So hats off to you for putting it all down on paper. My next question is, what can council do to help you?
Through your worship, I think this is an excellent first step. Adopting the climate action plans through resolution is a good step. As the rubber hits the road, supporting other objectives like putting that climate change lens within procurement, that will be integral. That will be another guiding step. I think sharing the good news as we accomplish some of these objectives with your constituents is important. One of the key things that I'm hoping we can invest in heavily with Preston on staff is that community engagement and working with the schools, working with other community groups, cottage associations, et cetera, to build that literacy at the community level and build it at the staffing level. So I think being supportive of those objectives, that would be an excellent first start.
Great. Get ready for lake associations. They start in May and they go every single Saturday and Sunday till well after Labor Day. So Preston, you'll be busy next summer. I'll get you an invitation to all 28 of the associations. Maybe I don't have. So we have a resolution on the table. Whereas the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin adopts the corporate greenhouse gas emissions reduction target of 30% below 2016 levels by 2030. And whereas the council will strive to achieve net zero emissions in its operations by 2050. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adopt the Corporate Climate Action Plan attached hereto as Schedule A. And it was originally moved by, Gail Finson, and seconded by Ted Collins. And we deferred it last meeting, so now we're voting. All in favor? Thank you. And that is carried unanimously on September 18th. And then this one is it different?
Yeah.
Oh, and whereas the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin adopts the community greenhouse gas emissions reduction target of 6% below 2016 levels by 2030. And whereas council will strive to achieve net zero emissions in its community by 2050. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adopt the Community Climate Action Plan attached hereto as Schedule A. And it was moved originally by Ted Collins and seconded by Greg Getty. All in favor? Great, and that's unanimous. So thank you, Forrest, and your entire team. We're on the same page with you. Okay, I have a motion that bylaw number 2023-089, being a bylaw to amend the Township of Seguin zoning bylaw number 2006-125, property roll number 4903-030-008-02405, application number R 2023-0014-F for Lalonde is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion to put this on the table? Councillor Adams and seconded by, and if we have any questions, they would be directed to Brady. Does anyone have any questions on this? No? All in favor? And that's carried. And I have a motion that bylaw number 2023-101, being a bylaw to amend Township of Seguin zoning bylaw number 2006-125, property roll number 4903-010-002-01900, application number R 2023-0013-H for Jabour is hereby deemed to have been read a first and second and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion to put this on the table? Councillor Fellner and Councillor Finson. Are there any questions for Taylor? We had a delegation a few meetings ago on this one. All in favor? Thank you. So that is passed. Okay, and this is the motion that bylaw number 2023-106, being a bylaw to regulate the setting off of fireworks and the sale of fireworks within the Township of Seguin, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion to put this on the table? Councillor Getty and seconded Councillor Bazinski. And I see Rory to explain and take any questions. Yes, that's what we're on.
Thank you.
Are there, do you want to give us an overview, Rory?
Definitely. Sorry about that. Through you, Madam Chair. Members Council, today I present an important recommendation that will enhance the safety and well-being of our community. As Supervisor of Bylaw Services, I bring to your attention the proposed fireworks bylaw and open air burning bylaw for adoption. Our department's continuous improvement plan led staff to assess our existing fireworks and fire regulations currently contained in bylaw 2020-058. So through this evaluation, staff identified opportunities to strengthen regulations, particularly in the areas of fireworks use, dates and times of permitted use, and regulations to ensure safe usage. So additionally, minor adjustments were made to our township's fire regulations to align with this proposal and were completed in consultation with the fire department. So to streamline and enhance measures, staff proposed the division of the existing bylaw into two separate entities, one being the fireworks bylaw and two being the open air burning bylaw, as shown in the schedules of the report. These new standalone bylaws provide additional tools for enforcement, ensuring the safety of our residents, and of course, safeguarding the environment. Public input had played a role in shaping these bylaws. through public consultation that happened in August of 2023, which included a survey distributed through Let's Connect Seguin. The results from the survey highlighted the following key takeaways. First off, a majority of respondents do not use fireworks frequently. 2, most respondents found that the proposed firework regulations to be fair. 3, the community's preference is to limit fireworks use to key holidays, as listed in the proposed fireworks bylaw. And lastly, the majority of respondents support regulations on fireworks sales within the township. So based on the feedback from the last point, staff had incorporated regulations on fireworks sales into the draft, such as safe storage while in store and proper display, as well as prohibiting the sale of and accessibility of fireworks to minors, those being under 18 years old. So at present, our fireworks regulations notably lack provisions for ensuring the safe use of fireworks. They only govern the permissible times for fireworks displays in accordance with our noise bylaw, and prohibit their use during periods of extreme fire risk or under a fire ban under our current bylaw. Now, we've kept these regulations, but added to them to address these gaps. The proposed fireworks bylaw, 1, limits fireworks use to Victoria Day, Canada Day, and New Year's Eve, along with related abutting weekends, dependent on what day of the week it lands on. That's all described within the bylaw. I will say it is important to note that these dates were chosen as they reflect neighboring municipalities' bylaws found around us, and that the included stat holidays encompass all Canadians as a means of fostering national unity. The second addition being additional safety measures while using fireworks, including but not limited to maintaining a minimum distance of 8 meters from buildings and vehicles, prohibiting the use of fireworks by minors, and prohibiting the use during high wind speeds over 40 kilometers per hour. So by implementing the fireworks bylaw, we aim to reduce the risk of fires, injuries, and property damage, while also minimizing air pollution or noise disturbances. As far as the fire regulations under our current bylaw, we've revised what was already there and made sure that it aligned with the proposed fireworks bylaw, as well as added a couple necessary definitions and enhanced provisions to ensure officers have the right tools for the job. Once again, this was through a consultation process with the fire department. So to conclude, staff humbly recommend that council approves both the proposed fireworks bylaw and open air burning bylaw attached to this report. By doing so, we take a significant step towards improving community livability and safety. So thank you for your time, and I'm prepared to address any inquiries that members of council may have.
Councillor Adams?
Yeah, Rory, one question I've seen in a lot of the comments, the age for buying fireworks and not for fireworks for open burning was 18. A lot of people complained it should be lowered. I thought 16 was fair too, because it was I think it's at 18 to control a fire now. And the other one was special occasions for fireworks. Could there not be a permit set up if people want to have a special occasion, they could get a permit to do so? Like I know a lot of people said about weddings and different events. Could there not be a permit for that?
Yeah, so for the first question you had about age of attendance being 18, in consultation with the fire department, it was felt to keep it at that age so that both bylaws were the same. Nevertheless, it's something that if council directs me to go back to, I'm more than willing to make that easy tweak. As far as the second point, as far as obtaining a permit for anything outside of the 3 dates, that would fall under the reign of a commercial display firework. And that being used for any sort of community celebrations, et cetera, that would be at the discretion of the fire chief if they would like to provide a permit for such event. If that answers your question.
That's good. Thank you.
I'm going to ask our Chief Administrative Officer to reply directly to you, Ken.
Also, just note, your worship, that the government of Canada's regulations on buying and using consumer fireworks also has a minimum age requirement of 18 years of age. So reducing it is actually impossible when there's a federal law that speaks to the age of 18.
Sorry, was that my comment was specific to a fire, not fireworks?
No, it was open burning that Ken brought up, not fireworks.
My apologies. I was under the assumption it was fireworks.
He brought up the 18-year-old, 16-year-old buying fireworks.
Yeah. Both, for both. Well, we can't change the fireworks one because the federal law overrules us. Any
Through
other
you,
questions?
Madam Chair, if we would like to make a change as far as the use of the attendance age when it comes to an open air burn, a campfire, for instance, we would be able to drop it down. However, the Chief Administrative Officer is correct about not being able to drop the age for sale or use with fireworks.
Yeah, and I just remind everybody that any changes to these bylaws before you were all asked for any ideas prior to public consultation in July. So we need to be cautious what we're suggesting now after the fact, because we all got a chance.
Sorry.
Hi, Rory. Your key holidays, you seem to not add in the American holidays for our American residents, July 4th and Thanksgiving. I think, I mean, even in Canada, I know that on Thanksgiving, our Thanksgiving, we set off fireworks as well. So you've just got Victoria Day, Canada Day, and New Year's, and abutting days on either end of it, depending on what it is. But I think we should take into consideration our American residents because they pay taxes as we pay taxes. And that's talking July 4th and Thanksgiving. That what I would like to see added. And I can't tell you what page I'm on because it doesn't indicate on my laptop or what page I'm on, but under sale of consumer fireworks, I'm okay with everything, discharge of commercial display of fireworks and everything, but I'm just wondering, you've got some, it says, no person shall sell any firecrackers. Isn't that fireworks? Or is that different?
You need to look at the definitions that are attached.
No, yep.
They are different. Firecrackers are things that just make a noise.
Bang, they go bang.
Yep.
No person shall sell any prohibited fireworks. So I guess that what you, if we pass this bylaw, it's going to allow you to go into variety stores and convenience stores in our area and check out their firework display. And if there's, and in that case, with October right around the corner and Thanksgiving coming up within the next month, if they've got a display of fireworks in their establishment, does that, are you going to tell them that, well, you can't display, or it's, you know, when it comes to our convenience store owners making any money, there's, I'm just asking this, Rory.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. So there's 3 points that were brought up. So I'll start with the American holidays. So staff recognize that limiting the use of fireworks to Canada Day, Victoria Day, and New Year's can be a complex issue, or there may be arguments on both sides. However, these are Canadian holidays, and if we were to open it up to, let's say, American holidays, then it would be possibly a bit of a slippery slope. And in order to be fair, it wouldn't just be American holidays. Perhaps it would be a number of other countries' holidays that would also like to, display their fireworks on that day. And so what would be fair to one is fair for all, whereas it's staff's opinion, just to keep it to Canadian holidays as a means of fostering that national unity. It also aligns with neighboring municipalities around us, like Muskoka Lakes, and their bylaw. So that's the first point. The second point is, Madam Chair is correct that fireworks and firecrackers are defined differently from one another, and they do have their separate provisions as far as what regulations would be imposed. And then the last point, the bylaw is not saying that storefronts and businesses are not permitted to display fireworks or to sell fireworks. It is so that they sell them and or display them up to the minimum standard set out in the bylaw. So with respect to displaying fireworks, they need to be displayed in a sealed package away from inflammable materials or goods, and they need to be clearly marked as fireworks. In addition, they would also have to make sure that they're in separate batches with no more than a maximum gross weight of 25 kilograms. So that if there ever were to be any sort of situation, then at least they're not all in one area, and that creates a much bigger problem. And then, of course, the last other thing, just as far as where you can sell. So sell within an establishment and not sell out of your car. So it's more so about those regulations. We're not telling people that they're not allowed to display or sell.
Yeah. Those consumer related fireworks, is that provincial or federal, or is it Seguin bylaw? Is it under, like, did Seguin make that up, or is that a provincial bylaw or a federal bylaw?
With respect to sale of consumer fireworks?
Yep.
Sale of consumer fireworks, of course, what we have before you is a municipal bylaw. Now, as far as the regulations for sale, transportation, or use of fireworks, that would fall under a larger act, being the Explosives Act. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Councillor Finson.
Rory and I spoke about the open burning bylaws, and I'm not going to try to pick it out. What I'd like to know is, I've got that tickle in my throat, is our residents, not commercial, able to get permits to burn, to open burn? We discussed that. And also whether there will be that, whatever you've changed in the bylaw, people aren't going to read your bylaw. Will it be posted as you're allowed to burn from dusk till dawn, you're allowed to have it 6 by 6, and you're allowed to burn, all the rules we discussed with each other? Because there has been a change. I'm just curious to know, is what we discussed covered the way we discussed it in the bylaw, whether I'd be able to get a permit if I wanted to burn in the daytime for my fall debris or whatever I burn. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair. The first question was about permits. Residents are able to get permits if they're going to be doing, let's say, a daytime burn. That would be facilitated through the fire department and on consent and approval through the fire chief. More information about that can be found on seguin.ca, and residents are able to go to the fire services page to gather more information about that. Second to that, as far as rules and the changes within the bylaw before you, there are a number of smaller changes, particularly with definitions and updates to the enforcement and offenses section. With respect to the definitions, that have been added would be a designated appliance, the definition of an incinerator, as well as the definition of an outdoor solid fuel burning or combustion appliance, which just basically gives more clarification as far as what would be deemed an offense versus a permitted use, in short. And all of that would be contained within the bylaw, and on the fire department's webpage, any updates that would be required would be done on that page or within the bylaw itself.
Our chief administrative officer is going to weigh in on this too.
Thank you, worship members of council. Just to complement Rory's comments, of course, with any major change or any type of change to a bylaw, we would certainly deploy a communication strategy to help update council and the residents and community members that are affected by it. So there certainly will be a communication rollout, assuming council approves this tonight.
So just to answer to that, that was my problem. I read the bylaw 14 or 17 times and it still took me speaking to Rory to understand what I was reading. So I just wanted to know that because people are going to do what they did last year, right? They're going to continue. So that's wonderful. That answers my question perfectly. Thank you both.
And I think to help Councillor Finson and for our residents, it's often good to have the frequently asked questions component to what does this change mean? How does this affect me? So we will certainly again, assuming council approves these, we will certainly deploy a communication strategy that addresses all of that.
I do have a number of people though that do not access Seguin. I know everybody's supposed to, but I have a number of people that don't, that I will be answering their questions. So I just wanted to make sure I wasn't giving them bad information. Thanks.
Yeah, and perhaps, because it's autumn and because a lot of people burn in the autumn, maybe a poster at the transfer stations or something like that for the non-Seguin.ca people would help. Or at the library, maybe
That's
a flyer
perfect.
at the library.
Thank
I don't
you.
know what, but. Okay, we have a motion on the table. The first one relating to fireworks and the sale of fireworks. It was moved by Greg and seconded by Mariel Bazinski. All in favor? Okay, and that's carried unanimously. And then the second part of that is I have a motion that bylaw number 2023-107, being a bylaw prescribing times for setting fires, precautions to be observed, and penalties for contraventions, and to repeal bylaw number 2020-058 and all of its amending bylaws in their entirety is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion to put this on the table? Councillor Adams and a seconder, Councillor Getty. I think we had our discussion with Rory on this one. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. So thank you, Rory. I know you're moving through your list of bylaws and we appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we move to business. Oops, wait a minute, just a second here. So we have a presentation from Mrs. Gosling. And I believe Councillor Bazinski, you're going to speak to this. So over to you.
Thank you. So Rebecca had approached me about her location on Badger Road, and if you get off at the Osler Park Drive, Badger Road thing, you go to the left, you're Osler Park Drive, you go to the right, you're Badger Road, you go past the golf course and down to the end where it splits, and she's right in there. So after Rebecca had contacted me, I contacted our Director of Public Works and asked him about considerations. So the property was in the old Foley Township that was amalgamated into Seguin. At the time it was in Foley Township, it was a year-round municipal road, and Rebecca's done her homework and has got verification on that. And I think possibly what may have happened was that at some point in time, there was someone living there permanently, and now there wasn't. So people stopped snow plowing, and it makes sense for Seguin not to snow plow if there's not going to be anybody living there permanently. So that was the way it went. And now Ms. Gosling and her family are going to be there. She has 2 children, and in order for them to get the school bus, she needs the municipal part to be plowed. And I guess once a municipal road, pretty much always a municipal road, the municipality can let it, degrade a bit. And it's, it isn't, perfect in that it's not an asphalt road, but I think that, it would make a lot of sense to allow winter snow plowing. The Director of Public Works said he talked to the plow operator, and the operator said that he could get down there. So it's not a question of impossible to move the snow plow down. So I think, given that it was, and given Seguin's encouragement to have more people living permanently in the township and to make it easier and provide superior service, that I would put the motion forward that we would plow that portion of the road to Ms. Gosling's property. Thank you.
Thank you. Director McLeod, are you available to talk to this? Like, the one thing I do want to point out is that there are many, many people whose children go to school where the parents take them to another place. The school bus doesn't stop at the end of every driveway. And many school buses pick children up that are not on plowed roads. So that, just saying a school bus needs to go is not reason to plow a road, because that would make it, we'd be plowing kilometers and kilometers. So Director McLeod, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, and members of council. Mario, thanks for that. So yeah, back in, I think it was the fall of 2022, Ms. Gosling reached out to myself and kind of went quiet for a little bit, just said there is a policy in place. I've spoken with my staff. Mario is correct, and possibly that, if no one was living down there, we may have stopped. So speaking with some staff, long tenured staff, is in the old, like prior to amalgamation, we did plow that road. That was confirmed by staff. Now, if we plowed this in Seguin area where we do have this policy, I don't know. I don't know if there's some mapping errors included with that. That there's about a 5-year kind of fuzzy period. I tried to look deep and to see what some chronology of events essentially. And so what I'm saying is we have this policy, and I do have a photo of the current condition of the road. It is narrow. I don't know what the springtime would look like. And we do have a policy that I'm just trying to follow. And if council says otherwise, there will be some work involved in upgrading the road as well. But yeah, I just thought her next step would be to approach this to council and proceed. So.
Thank you. We have a question from Councillor Collins.
On our GIS map.
You have your hand up?
Sorry, Tom. On our GSI map that I think we all have, is it a private road?
No, thank you. Yeah, currently today, it is a private road on an unopened road allowance. Now, if it was opened up in the late 90s, I don't know. I think there's some, yeah, currently, yes, I'm just to leave it at that. That is how we treat it.
Councillor Bazinski.
Yes, thank you. Well, Tom, would you not say that if the municipality whether it be Foley or Seguin, if they had a municipal road, they would have some responsibility for its upkeep. Like it wouldn't just degrade into a private road. It would still be a municipal road if that was how it was designated.
So it's a good question. I don't know where a 25-year period where that, that line is drawn. I don't know unless getting some legal advice on that. I don't know if there's precedent been set on that in previous years.
Our CAO is going to weigh in a little bit here.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. Privately maintained roads on unopened road allowances are not an uncommon thing throughout the municipality. I don't unfortunately have the statistic in front of me, but there are hundreds of kilometers of privately maintained roads on unopened road allowances throughout the municipality. So while we may have been maintaining something prior to amalgamation 20 plus years ago, today we're unbudgeted to start opening up that unopened road allowance maintenance. I also took a drive down there myself the other day just to have a quick little look. To begin doing maintenance, even on this small section, we're going to need some funding to the turnaround that's there is on private property. We can't be doing turnarounds on private property, so we would need to do some upgrades immediately. And my bigger concern here is, this is one of hundreds of kilometers. I believe the number, Tom can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's north of 300 kilometers of private roadways within the municipality, most of which fall within a unopened municipal road allowance, no different than this one. So I just wanted to give council that bit of information as you consider this.
Do we have any idea what kind of budget we're in here to upgrade the road and plow it and maintain it for one individual?
How far in is it?
I would suggest that we would have to do a little bit of analysis to figure out what that looks like from a maintenance and then improvement perspective. The road needs to be able to handle a 5-ton tandem axle dump truck with a wing and plow on it. It needs to have the appropriate turnaround space. Once it gets in there, there could be, we would need to do some analysis to determine how much money we might need there to open that up.
Okay. Councillor Bazinski and then Councillor Finson.
Thank you. So Ms. Gosling's contention is that it was a municipal road. So that is quite different than the hundreds of roads that are private on unopened road allowances. If that was a municipal road at the time of Foley Township and Seguin and Foley amalgamated into Seguin, then it would still be a municipal road. I'm just looking at the potential legalities here, because someone could make the argument that if it was maintained as a municipal road, the municipality can't shirk its responsibility for maintenance. Just saying. So something to consider. Thank you.
Just briefly, if council wants to have a discussion about the legalities, I would suggest we refer the item to a closed session.
Okay, Councillor Finson.
I thought I just heard Tom say that it was not a municipal road. And I mean, if it was not a municipal road, like you'd have to know for sure if it was a pardon?
There have been maps.
I understand there might be maps, but I know that Tom just said, it says on his thing that it's not a municipal road for the information that he has. I'm just saying that if it's not a municipal road, if it isn't a municipal road, I don't believe it can be bumped up in the float, because I have one right at the end of my street with it.
If I could just
hang on just a second. Can we wait? One person speaks at a time.
All I'm saying is if it isn't a municipal road, then I think that it has to be treated like a private road.
I would agree 100% with you. The issue here is that Ms. Gosling has maps that show it was a municipal road. That's the issue, and that's all I'm saying.
Okay, Councillor Fellner is next.
Thank you, Mayor. my first term of council, we got a program to go in to have a look at our seasonally maintained roads to see if we couldn't help some of the residents out there. That's a little different than a road, a private road on a township road allowance, a non-assumed road. That's what we're speaking about here is a non-assumed road. There is a mechanism to have it assumed, but it's not assumed. Even with, I think we did the program for 2 years, we were able to get maybe like 5% of the seasonally maintained roads where economically we could actually do something. And I think the criteria was 4 or 5 people to service. So to me, this it is not a reasonable ask. There's lots and lots of private roads on township road allowances that aren't assumed. So my position would be no.
Okay, and I think there is a difference between what might have been municipally looked after under Foley or Christie or anything and what's under Seguin. There are many roads that were previously treated differently under other. Councillor Getty has a comment.
My only comment was, and I understand what Tom is saying, and I understand what Mary was saying, and I guess the question comes down, is this a municipal road under the definition? Or is it not a municipal road under the definition? And I agree with Jason. I think this is not the only case that we have. I think it is a discussion, falls for discussion and closed because there is legal opinions that we've had in regards to them. I don't know whether it is something that to defer, have a short closed on it at the next meeting and then come back with a decision.
Can I suggest that maybe we go into closed, but we also ask staff to give us a financial ballpark of some sort? If we're into a couple $100,000, I don't think we can justify it. So we have to upgrade the road. We have to agree to maintain it year round, plow it, build a turnaround. And that's a whole lot of questions none of us at the table right now can answer. So I would like to send it back to staff. And I suggest that before we go into a future closed meeting, we have a legal opinion on whether it's a road or not and bring that to closed with a cost. Is that fair?
Yep,
Fair.
So thank you for bringing it to our attention. I've had many, many calls with Mrs. Gosling as well.
And I hope.
So let's get the experts to weigh in with some dollars and some timelines. So we move on to item 8B, which is the letter of support. And I believe you're going to talk to that, Councillor Collins.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Mayor. There's a little bit of history here. This convenience stores in the village of Orville, and it serves the residents of Orville and in the surrounding areas right up into Lake Manitowaba, right up into Nipissing Road. In fact, even up into Sprucedale now, because now there's nothing up there that has the LCBO. The LCBO is apparently very vital to the store's success moving forward. There's been an LCBO at this location for the last 20 years, and under two different owners. In this particular case, why the proposal or the application, I should say, was not approved by the Convenience Outlets team, which is an extension of the LCBO, is that it was initiated in June the 13th. Well, he didn't know that the store has to be in operation. It's got to be open. It's got to be business carrying business on a day-to-day matter. And now that the Orville store is open, and it was open in August, it's now open to the public from 8 till 8 in the morning till 8 at night. And it's economic development for our area. It's something that the residents of our area need and want. And I think with our support, it may help him achieve getting his license. And also there's an RFP coming out October 2nd with the LCBO, and he wants to submit the letter of support with the RFP to the LCBO. And of course, it'll be up to them, the convenience outlets team, if he's approved or not. So
what you have before you is a draft letter that would be signed by Councillor Collins. Does anybody object to that letter being sent as written? So you have direction to get it put on letterhead and sign it.
thank you. Thank you. Oh.
Okay.
Still have to drive.
So we move on to Art Cole's resignation from Belvedere. His letter is comprehensive on page 339. So I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby accept the resignation of Art Coles as the Township of Seguin representative on the Belvedere Heights Home for the Aged Board of Management, and that council does hereby reaffirm the appointment of Councillor Gail Finson as a Township of Seguin representative on the Belvedere Heights Home for the Aged Board of Management. And I'd like to add that a thank you would go to Councillor Coles for his years of service and his leadership in the campus of care as part of that. Could I have a motion to put this on the table? Councillor Fellner and a seconder, Councillor Collins. All in favor? Thank you. And the next is pretty comprehensive. It is the new structure for West Prairie Sound OPP Detachment Board, and I hope you can summarize this a little bit for us, Councillor Getty.
I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. So what's happened is the policing in the province of Ontario has been governed by the Police Services Act since about 1990. In 2019, the provincial government started the development of the Community Safety and Policing Act, which redefines the roles of police services boards. One of the functions is to redefine the services of police services boards. Many municipalities and regions have their own police services board, but areas that were governed by the OPP did not have that. So in this new Community Safety and Policing Act, the municipalities that are governed or cared for by the West Prairie Sound Detachment will have representation on a police services board. The submission for the model was submitted to the Solicitor General. It's been a long process, just a slow process, but it has been approved as it was submitted. And so what will happen is there will be moving into the next stages of developing a police services board for the West Prairie Sound District. Seguin is one of the 8 participating municipalities, which will have a seat on the board, as well as there will be 2 representatives on the board from the community and 2 political appointments to the board. What the criteria for those are, I cannot tell you as of yet, because we've only notified of them accepting the proposal as it was submitted on September 8th. But as that moves forward, our next CPAC meeting is on the 2nd of November, and I'll find out whether each community will be submitting a name for their community members. The political appointments, I'm sure, will come from the province. And really what that's going to do is the Police Services Board, to put it in a nutshell, establishes policies for effective enforcement. And what it does is it allows the board to set objectives and priorities for the police in that community. Up until now, under the present structure, the communities that were served really didn't have, other than an ad hoc relationship with the person in charge. So it will be more formalized, and they're expecting it to be implemented sometime in 2024. But I'm hoping after the November 2nd meeting, I'll be able to give you more information on how the structure is going to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I know it's been a long time. It's been on our agenda for probably 3 or 4 years. Does anybody have any questions for Councillor Getty? Thank you for summarizing. Okay, we move on to a bylaw for rail safety. Okay. I have to read the whole thing. Okay, bear with me. Whereas Rail Safety Week is to be held across Canada from September 18th to 24th, 2023. And whereas 232 railway crossing and trespassing incidents occurred in Canada in 2022, resulting in 66 avoidable fatalities and 43 avoidable serious injuries. And whereas educating and informing the public about rail safety, reminding the public that railway rights of way are private property, enhancing public awareness of the dangers associated with the highway rail grade crossings, ensuring pedestrians and motorists are looking and listening while near railways, and obeying established traffic laws will reduce the number of avoidable fatalities and injuries caused by incidents involving trains and citizens. And whereas Operation Lifesaver is a public-private partnership whose aim is to work with the public, rail industry, governments, police services, media, and others to raise rail safety awareness. And whereas the council has been asked to adopt this resolution in support of ongoing efforts to raise awareness, save lives, and prevent injuries in communities, including our municipality. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby support National Rail Safety Week to be held from September 18th to 24th, 2023. Could I have a motion to this effect? Councillor Adams and a seconder, Councillor Bazinski, all in favor. Thank you. So as I read this, it starts today. Right? Okay, and now we have, this is a follow-on really housekeeping member from 2 meetings ago. We have a motion that bylaw number 2023-094, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2019-039, being a bylaw to establish remuneration and expenses for the members of council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. This is housekeeping because it has to go public, right, in the paper. Could I have a motion to this effect? Councillor Getty, and seconded by Councillor Fellner. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you. And I have a motion that bylaw number 2023-103, being a bylaw to write off taxes on properties in the Township of Seguin, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. I have a motion to this effect. Councillor Finson, and seconded Councillor Bazinski. And I believe this is all because of demolition. Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. And council reports. Let's start with Ward 1.
September the 11th, I attended the chamber meeting on Zoom. We're having a business excellence. I'll start over. September the 11th, I attended the chamber meeting by Zoom. They're having their Business Excellence Awards, September the 22nd. Tickets are available. I had a constituent call with a complaint about a culvert on Highway 518. With help from Tom, we were able to get Fowler's to fix the issue. That's all I have.
Thank you. I turn off the-
Thank you.
Ward 2.
So I attended the fly-in at the airport. I'm glad I got there early because the cars were backed up on the roads and everywhere. It had to be the best attended fly-in that I've been to, and I haven't been to that many, but I've been to a few. I was treated to the smell of jet exhaust as a private jet was taking off to go from their cottage on, I think it was Lake Rosso down to the Bahamas. Must be nice. So I hope there's some way we can recover some of the, it looks like they should be able to afford to pay some good landing and takeoff fees. However, anyway, it was a very well attended event, and a good time was had by all. I also have been involved a little bit with the Muskoka Watershed Council, talking with them about their fee request. The council also had this morning, as was mentioned, they provided a big public ceremony on their watershed report card, and they've developed a strategic plan, and they were talking about this conference for municipalities scheduled for February of 2024. I have also had a number of people call me, including Ms. Gosling and a number of other people with respect to development applications that they plan on putting in. And I try to tell them, you know, the best person to talk to is Taylor Elgee and their staff. I as a counselor really don't get involved in the nitty-gritties. So I just like to reemphasize that, because I'm sure there are people that are watching, and my background is in environmental planning. However, that's not my responsibility as a counselor here. So, there were a few other minor issues with roads and so on, but that's my report.
Thank you. Councillor Getty.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On the 9th, I also attended the airport, and Mario's covered that. On the 17th, I attended the community barbecue here in Humphrey, and I can't say the weather held up, but I'm sure the mayor, Jason, will talk a little bit more about it. I just wanted to give an update on the Classic Cruise, and I have to give a shout out to Tony Hockrig and now Ryan Wilson as the young up and comer. The Classic Cruise, historically, since its beginning, has donated back to the community any profits that are made during it. And what is being contributed back this year, Seguin Township does not, I learned what it was. My kids actually play on one in Keswick. We do not have a handicap swing in Seguin Township. Talking to Dominique, they're in the process. The timing was perfect. We're in the process of redoing the framing of the swing sets at the Rosso Fieldhouse. And the Classic Cruise will be contributing a handicap swing to the new framing at Rosso Fieldhouse. The other three donations, historically, Harvester Food Bank in Perry Sound, the Perry Sound Hospital Equipment Fund, and new this year is the Perry Sound High School Automotive Tech Program. They virtually have no budget. So the participants in the Classic Cruise are all car guys, car people. And they're starting off with a cash contribution and also looking to leverage businesses and private citizens as they work with to improve the program at the Perry Sound High School. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ward 4, Councillor Fellner.
Thank you, Mayor. I too was at the fly-in. And I pretty much made every year. I think they've had it for a long time, and that, I think Mario's correct. That was a lot more people. I too was stuck in the traffic. It was a great day. It was a great morning and it's, I had a Zoom call with on Park to Park with some of the township staff, with the people from the Ministry of Natural Resources regarding a strategy, the overall strategy in the Seguin Trail. For those of you that are listening, particularly the cottagers that use the Seguin Trail, we've been a little remiss to schedule our first meeting until we had this meeting with the ministry. So I can assure you that we're continuing on with what we told you we were going to do in August. So other than that, I think it was a quiet 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Collins.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. On September the 7th, we had I attended a Seguin business meeting. On September 9th, I also was at the official opening of the new runway in Seguin. On September 11th, I had a meeting with Tom McLeod, the Director of Roads, on a couple of concerns, and we were on site with them. Tom explained everything, and I thank him immensely for what he's doing and how good a job he is actually doing. And on September 14th, I had a regular meeting of DSAP, and that's it.
Thank you. Councillor Finson.
On September the 8th, I went to the truck rodeo. Now, I didn't know anybody, so I didn't know what to do. I just kind of stood there, and it was our guys were driving. So I watched them, but I didn't talk to a soul because I didn't know anybody. I didn't know anybody. I didn't see you. I was so surprised. I kept wandering around thinking they're going to think I'm anyway, I went anyway, and it was really something to watch. That's for sure. On the 9th, I went to the airport as with everybody else, but I didn't go to the ribbon cutting because I was in Wave and I got all wrapped up in the tour, and I was only halfway through the tour and it was 1:45. I was just like, oh my goodness. Anyway, we're going to weave rugs there. And we're so excited. Cloth for free. My sister-in-law has cloth because her husband owned a fabric company. Anyway, that's another story, but we're going to do rugs. Her and we had a Pumpkin Fest meeting on September 3rd, 13th. Everything's going really, really, really well. We're going to have another meeting when I get back from Prince Edward Island. Belvedere Heights meeting on September the 13th as well. And that was a governance meeting. Had a DSAB meeting on the 14th. And after that, I had a NOAA meeting as well with the DSAB. I think I have a recreation committee and a Belvedere Heights committee meeting this week. Anyway, and I want to say that's so wonderful about the classic cruise and the swing. I've heard a lot of feedback on it. Everybody's really, really happy about it. It's a really nice thing. Anyway, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. First thing I want to point out is that we are still awaiting council reports on AMO from councillors Fellner, Getty, and Finson. Submit it to Craig for the next.
I have it in writing. I just said it last time. I thought it was redundant, but anyway.
Yep. Needs to go to Craig for the next package. So September 7th, as Councillor Collins mentioned, we had a business committee meeting, and if you received mail in Seguin, you should have gotten a postcard last Friday as a business inviting you to reply to it. And I understand from Valerie, the replies are coming in through the QR code. Those that replied that they want to be in our business directory, of which we don't have one, will be invited to the mayor's lunch on October 27th, I believe. I was at the road rodeo. It was really cold at the salt docks that day, but I was one of the judges. I was taught how to do it all, but it was really interesting to watch what our plow and truck drivers, as well as those from other municipalities, can do with a truck, forward, backwards, threading the needle, going all over. And I want to say that the overall winner was a Seguin driver, Chad. I don't know what Chad's last name is, and he will be going to the provincials as So that was pretty neat. And I know that our operations staff are hoping to invite this road rodeo back again next year. This was the first one north of Innisfil, I think. Anyways, it's quite an event. I was at the fly-in with many of you. It really was a good feeling for those of us that sit on the airport commission. Then on the 12th, we had an airport commission meeting. The 15th, Councillor Fellner mentioned our meeting with MNRF. Long time coming. Tried to get them to nail down a timeline for the next steps. That's not so easy with the provincial bureaucrats, but we'll see where they come down. Then on the 16th, on Saturday, I played in the West Perry Sound Health Center female golf tournament to raise funds for the breast cancer treatment and the end of life ward, which is where both the obstetrical ward and the palliative care end of life are housed. So the theme was Circle of Life, birth to death. It was very sold out with 144 golfers. And then on the 17th, we had the Member of Parliament and Member of Provincial Parliament community barbecue, a little bit soggy, but pretty well attended given the weather yesterday in our pavilion. And this morning, Councillor Fellner and I attended a meeting at the Stocky Centre to get the logistics for the December 17th community concert. Put it on your calendar. It will be an afternoon event, family friendly, at the Stocky Centre. The Stocky Centre's been donated, and it will showcase local talent ranging from the elementary schools right up to some of our very accomplished recording artists that live in the township. And the proceeds from it will be going to the pool. There'll be lots of activities for kids, from face painting. Santa Claus has already accepted the invitation. And if Dominique and Kara are listening, I really hope that on December 17th, it's not the Santa Skate or Breakfast with Santa 2. We're running out. This is a Sunday. Ours is a Sunday. So, the 17th. Yep. Couple other dates that I hope you've already got on your calendar is the Mayor's Breakfast on October 27th at the Log Cabin. We've also reached out to the Wasauksing Council to try and have a joint social. Really, it's not a joint council meeting. So I'd like you to save October 19th and 20th. It'll be a lunch meeting if they accept. They've been invited for the 19th, but keep the 20th also. And I don't want to sound like your mother, but I do want to stress that we all owe it to staff to be prepared, to have read all their staff reports well in advance of the meetings. Craig and I can tell when each of you open your agenda packages. And at the latest, you get them Thursdays. The goal is always to have the agenda out Tuesday and then the meat of the thing Wednesdays. But we absolutely owe it to the staff that we read and understand their issues. And if we have issues or we don't understand, that we have at least a couple of days to ask those questions. The morning of Mondays doesn't work because sometimes you just don't get them. I'm also going to ask that everybody not use their cell phones for texting or anything, both staff and council during council meetings, particularly in closed meetings. There is no reason anybody other than who's sitting at this table or a lawyer or something needs to know anything that's happening in a closed meeting. I think many of us bring our phones and we turn them on silent. If there was ever an emergency, somebody calling from school that there's sick kids, take the call and excuse yourself from the meeting and say, I have to go tend to something personal. But I really want us to stop texting and using phones or our iPads during meetings. So that's my rant today on behavior, but I know people are watching us text and they are wondering why we're texting during some of the meetings. And we just need to clean it up a little bit. So over to our Chief Administrative Officer.
Thank you, worship members of council. Yeah, big congratulations to Chad Sheehy, who was the winner at the road EO. It's an exciting opportunity for Chad to represent the township at the provincials, and we look forward to his continued success. Just a couple of brief updates. Of course, with the onset of fall and feeling those cooler mornings, just a quick reminder that the Humphrey Arena is moving into the fall and winter programming. Teams and clubs are back on the ice. Public skating is set to resume in the coming weeks, so keep an eye out for that if it interests you. I mentioned at our last update that a second public information session for the Rossel Memorial Hall restoration project is scheduled for Friday, September the 29th from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. With our architects from ERA, where they will share some design recommendations and some of their findings. The event now will include a potluck component hosted by the Creative Hands of Rosso, so all are welcome to attend.
But bring a dish.
But bring a dish. Yeah, you mentioned a bit about the business committee working with CBDC and staff to create the updated local business directory. Please check your mail and register for your business, because there will be a free lunch hosted by your worship later on in October. And of course, for all the updates and everything good that's happening within the township, or news and new things that are working, that staff are working towards, our Let's Connect Seguin public engagement page continues to be a valued resource for our residents. In the coming days, there'll be our next bylaw that we're working on will be going out for public consultation around clean yards. That'll be available for public input and feedback, so keep an eye and watch for our social media notifications and updates. That's it for me, your worship.
Thank you. Those of us that lived through the last Clean Yards meeting may be on vacation. I look at Mary. It was quite a meeting. So I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby receive the board and committee minutes and agendas and the correspondence as presented on the agenda and the addendum for September 18th, 2023 meeting of council. Could I have a motion to that effect? Mr. Vincent and a seconder. Fellner, all in favor? And I have a motion that bylaw number 2023-102, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of meetings of council, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion? Councilor Adams and the seconder, Brzezinski, all in favor? Thank you. And I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adjourn this regular meeting of council at 4:42 p.m. To meet again on Monday, October 2nd, or at the call of the mayor. Motion, Councillor Fellner. Then all in favor. Thank you. The Russell Hall consultations, the 29th, Friday, the 29th. And yes,